Hi everyone. Welcome to How to Make Movies Without Really Trying.
Wrong.
Wrong? And we're here to prove you, or not make money. So thank you all for joining us. We're here to answer your questions. We are all working in a very exciting time for independent filmmakers. There's a bunch of new opportunities every day. There's new technologies that are changing the way we make films. So we're here to answer your questions and walk you through some things that could possibly help you on this amazing journey.
I thought you didn't have a script. Where's all this coming from?
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I'm always on bad. Always on. So I'd like to introduce you guys to...
Ramfis Myrthil.
That's your name? Okay.
I think so.
Yeah. And do you want to tell everyone, your work, what you do, what you've been working on?
Okay, cool. Sure.
Good morning, everybody. This wonderful Saturday morning. So I'm an independent producer. I produce independent film. I am working on a ton of projects. I specialize in making stories or bringing stories to life that leave people touched, moved, and inspired. That's my goal as a human being. So a lot of the films that I make are with people of color, women, and the LGBTQ community. I produced this little movie called A Boy, a Girl, a Dream. It played at Sundance last year, and it was picked up by Samuel Goldwyn Films, came out in theaters, did pretty well. And this past year, I had a few movies released. I produced a film called Cicada that was a Tribeca. It's about a bisexual man that gets involved in an interracial relationship during the Sandusky trial. So it deals with trauma, sexual abuse. And then I also produced a biopic on Mary Pickford, who was one of the first women to create their own independent studio. So she was a figurehead in the 1920s and 30s, and she started United Artists with Douglas Fairbanks, D.W. Griff, and Charlie Chapman. So these are the kind of stories that I get behind. I'm going to be producing a biopic on Rosa Parks next year, and it's female-driven, female director, and it's an important story. And I think that's it, you know? Yeah. And I've had 3 films at this festival, and it's a home to me. You know, Deborah Markowitz has been very kind and supportive over the years, and I started here, and it's good to be back and to be on the board.
Awesome. My name's Elias Plagianos. I'm a writer, director, producer. I've been here for 10 years. So my first film played here in 2010, and this is like you were saying, man, this is like a home. And every time I work on a project, I try and think, what will the people here think of me? How have I grown? What's this? Like, seriously, because you want to keep growing as a filmmaker. So this year, I shot a film in Cuba, Havana, that's playing here. It's called Sombra City. I produced a film for Crypt TV, which is owned by Blumhouse in Australia. That's going to premiere on their site this summer. And this summer, in a few weeks, I'm actually going to shoot a TV pilot for the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation. Yeah, that's about it.
The fact that I have to tell you who I am is I failed miserably. But my name is Steve Mena. I'm a writer, director, producer. To give you some background on me with regards to this festival, I won this festival. I won Best Feature with my first film, Malevolence, back in 2003. That win was instrumental in getting a distribution deal through Anchor Bay and kind of, jump-started my career. So I went on to make several movies after that, and I've also written some books, and what else can I tell you? We won this festival in 2010 with the sequel to my first film. It was a film called Bereavement. I think I also won Best Director then. And yeah, that's about it. I could go on for hours and hours and hours, but I'll give somebody else.
Hi, I'm Marc Jacobson. I'm not a filmmaker, I'm a lawyer. Legal credentials are, I'm listed in Best Lawyers in America. I'm listed in Chambers USA as the only lawyer for music and film in New York. I'm listed in both those categories, and I am a super lawyer. My kids tell me I wear my underwear outside my pants. I practice only music and film. I've represented films that have won here. I've been on the board for a very long time, and I was counsel for a very long time, and then took last year off and am back. Right now I'm working on a film to be written and directed by Claire Van Kampen, who is married to Marc Rylance, about Elaine de Kooning. We are working on a film called Inversion, which is a science fiction picture which has been in development for 10 years. And we're scheduled to start photography in October. It's budgeted at over $100 million. And it's entirely independently financed. We're doing a picture called Beautiful Game about the Zimbabwe soccer team that won an event. I can't even tell you what it is. Doing another picture about the creation of Guinness beer. And I'm doing one about, actually finishing one called The Virtuoso with Anthony Hopkins, Anson Mount, and Abby Cornish, which is a noir thriller. But that's what's going on now. I also represent a bunch of music clients, 2 of whom are on Republic Records. And when I used to first started with this group, I would do in this slot next door a program on music and film, and I have to know a lot about that. So, who's in charge?
Thanks, Dad.
I will say, if you plan to make any money in this business, this is the guy you
That's right.
or collect any revenue.
Collect.
All right, so I guess the lunatics are running the asylum today. The first thing about film always is script and story. And I think, how many of you guys are writers here? Everybody, I love it, right. So.
Wait, go another step. How many are directors? And how many are producers? Who didn't raise their hand? What do you guys do?
Want to be.
I'm sorry?
Want to be a producer.
Okay, well then you're a producer.
Okay.
Anybody
Find a
else?
script, right, that's it. Right, so we are speaking to people here who all write their own things and direct it and then want to shoot it. So the first thing is, how do you finance it, right? And how do you make these things? I guess, Ramfis, you could talk a little bit about the process of getting names attached to films, and like how do you get people interested in financing films?
All right, this is going to
Can I
sound real.
stop you? I actually think the first question is, who is the market for the film?
All right, Marc's in charge.
All right, Marc, take it away.
Because if you don't know who's going to come see your film, you don't know who's going to be the actor to attach.
You asked for it.
Okay, but that's what I think. I think you need to look at your script and say, oh, okay, this is going to be for 14 to 16-year-old boys, or this is going to be for 50 to 60-year-old men, or 50 to 60-year-old women. If you don't have that in mind, when you start producing the film, everything else will be a mishmash. So you need to have a direction in terms of that. Then you can figure out who your cast is and all that other stuff. Sorry for interrupting.
Well, actually, let's take it back a little bit further. So all of you guys in here are probably filmmakers. I don't know if you've made a feature film, short film, but I'm sure the first thing and the last thing you learned while doing it was that it's not as easy as it looks. It's a very, very difficult thing to produce, write, direct, edit, and complete a film. And if you have done that, you've got a film here, you should be very proud of yourselves, because it's a very tough thing to complete, and you should feel very good about being able to go through that process and come out on the other end. But what you really need to consider before you make a film is what about that film really gets you to get up in the morning and go to work and do it, because you're talking 16, 18-hour days, possibly a year of your life, maybe 2,
10.
or 10 if you're like me. So, it's a tremendous investment in your time. And you'll also find that in today's world, there's two things that have changed. When I first started making films, you had to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars just to buy the negative to go out and make this movie. Now you can shoot a film on your phone. So the logistics have changed. The discipline to make a film is different. You don't have to jump through a lot of hoops like you used to. You don't have to beg for money. You really all you need, all the tools are out there. They're extremely affordable. So now it's really just a question of your time. How much of your time do you want to invest in it? And if you're going to invest all this time, it's got to be something you're really passionate about. So I think more than anything else, be passionate about what you're going to embark and do this film about, because you're going to spend a year or two of your life doing it, talking about it, working at it, and then trying to sell it. So for example, if you don't know, like what he was saying about marketing and who your market is, if you don't know who's going to watch this film, then you need to step back and say, well, who is my movie for? Yes, it's for yourself. Obviously, that's first. But someone else may want to watch it too. So you got to think, who is that audience going to be? And once you have those things worked out, then start thinking about raising money, going out and hiring a crew, and making this film. And one of the questions we asked about, how many people here are writers, is one way to take control of your project is to write it, because once you have something like a script, that's something that's tangible. You can take that, you can raise money off of it, you can convince people to star in it, you can get cast attached to it if it's something really good. So that's where it all starts. So it's passion, writing, and then, I don't know, what did I leave out?
Target audience.
All right, I'm done for the day.
No, so that was all. So I think what you guys just heard was the two different worlds of indie filmmaking. Are you going to go out there and just write a story for yourself that you're super passionate about and not really care if you make the sale, but you just need to tell a story? Or are you telling a story to get a wide audience? And right, those are like the two worlds here, I think. And they're not always the same. And so you've heard the one, and now Ramfis, you can maybe speak more about the world where you're writing a script to get into theaters, right? That sort of way.
So I think the hardest thing is kind of like what you guys covered, is like getting the distribution. I think it's easier to raise the money than to get the distribution, because where the market is now, a lot of distributors are not giving MGs, and an MG is like a minimum guarantee. So like, for example, like if you shot a movie a few years ago for like $200,000, you'll be able to get a buyer that'll pay you at least that and then some, and you make your profit now. A lot of times now it's all about like a licensing deal where it's a split and you don't get that guarantee. So in order to be able to get that guarantee, you need actors or talent that have value. Now it's more about worldwide, like in terms of, if you have, let's say, Samuel L. Jackson, that worldwide you'll bank back, let's say, a few $100 million because he's in the Avengers or a Marvel movie or whatever. And because of the track record that he's been able to have over the last few years, he has value in these territories. So when you're putting together a script, a lot of times you want to put into consideration, if you can get talent from other regions, or if it's an American cast, does it travel in terms of Spain or Australia or Africa or South Africa? Like, are you going to get, money against that? So when I'm putting together a project, I look at all these things, and if you're a producer looking for a director, then you're looking for someone that has had worldwide success. If it's your first time out, it's really building a team that has had that successful track record in terms of a production company or producers, and then the talent. And then in terms of the talent, it always comes down to the script. You have to have a great script. So you'll be able to get talent that, at the end of the day, it's not really about the paycheck. It's really about the material. And if you have great material and you have a great team, like, you're setting yourself for success. So, for example, like this project I'm putting together now, it's around music. It's around like Tupac's legacy, and everyone, if you say Tupac, everyone kind of knows Tupac, So I feel that in terms of the market, the people that are going to want to watch this movie are people that like hip hop or Tupac or they've liked movies like Boys in the Hood or Straight Outta Compton. So that's kind of like my market. In terms of the cast that I'm looking at, it's I'm just going to throw names. I'm not saying these are the people, you know, we're going after specifically, but, you know, like an Ice Cube, most people know who Ice Cube is, you know, or Samuel L. Jackson, you know, like you say these names, you don't have to say, all right, it's such and such from this show or that show, you know, because anytime you have to explain that, that probably means like their name doesn't travel, you know, as far, or if the investor doesn't know, it's not gonna, you know, their eyes aren't gonna light up or pop up. So traditionally, what I have done, you know, to be able to get to talent, it's one of two things: either going through the front door, meaning going to their reps, their manager or agent. A lot of times the manager, because agents I feel like are all about the job. The managers are about the career. So they're more instrumental in terms of the long-term move of the actor as opposed to the agent. You know, an actor can go through many agencies, but they usually stay with the same manager. Or I go directly to the actor. And questions, how do you do that, right, Ramfis? Well, what I do is I do a lot of research. If there's someone I really want to get in front of, because of social media, I can find out like where they're going to be, what they're going to be up to, and
So you're a stalker.
oh, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So a lot of the films I've done, so like for example, A Boy and Girl, A Dream, it stars Amari Hardwick. He's on a show called Power, and we went to Amari directly. Amari had worked with one of the producers on the project before. He was like I don't know the exact title, but he's like the brand ambassador for ABFF, which is another film festival in Miami. So he was there, our director was there, they had a conversation, our other producer had a conversation with him. I met him on another film set, and we all kind of like went to him in multiple angles. And he believed in the team, he believed in the script. So once he came on board, you know, we kind of circumvented his agency. And he told his agents, I want to do this movie. And it wasn't about the paycheck. It was, again, wasn't a lot of money, you know, the movie. And how we got Megan Good was the same thing. She has a relationship with Datari, one of the producers, and she said, you know what, I know Amari, I'm going to come on board. And then Megan called her cousin who came on board, and then we casted the movie that way. You know, like we didn't go through any agents. Like to close out the paperwork, we got agents, and then because of the talent we had, we were able to get this agency called a Creative Artist Agency to represent the film and then like sell it. And we shot it, you know, I'm not allowed to disclose the budget, but we shot it for low enough that there was a program, which is not available anymore, but there are programs that sometimes pop up. But there was a program called the STARS program, which as long as you got your film into one of these festivals, like Tribeca, Sundance, Amazon would give you a minimum of $200,000, no matter what. And that money you can use for your P&A, meaning like your promotions and advertisement. You can use it to pay your investor. You can use it to pocket it yourself. You can do whatever you want with it. And Amazon allowed us to get a deal with anyone else within 18 months. So on top of taking this deal, we also signed a deal with Samuel Goldwyn Films. And that's how we're able to make a profit. And this was all because of relationships. So what I always encourage filmmakers to do is to do your research. Like, let's say, for example, you want to work with William Sadler. William Sadler comes to this festival quite often. He's had films here, and you envision him in this film that you're about to make. You come to LIIFE, and you come to his screening, and you talk to him at the end, and like, oh my God, like, I love your work. And you know, you do your due diligence and like why you really love his work. You know, like did you like the first film he's ever done? Is there something there that makes sense for him to get excited about your material? And then it's just kind of like sealing the deal there. And I've done that many times with talent, you know, across the board. And just kind of, you know, reading Box Office Mojo. That's a free tool that you have. Box Office Mojo shows you the returns on the film on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. So for example, like I was tracking Annabelle when it came out. I think like opening weekend it made 10 million. I'm like, that's it? And then the next weekend I saw it was up to 20. Now it's up to like 54 million. And you're able to track it domestically and foreign. And I used this information kind of like when I sit down with an investor, you create a deck and, okay, you're making this horror movie, what do you think it's going to be like? And I take like 3 to 5 films that have come out recently that have been successful, and I never guarantee, because you can't guarantee anything, but taxes and death, that I'm going to get a return, but I'm going to do my best efforts. And these are the films that are similar to the film that I'm making. This was the budget, this was the return, this is my game plan, this is the team, and this is why we think it's going to win. And then I try to get either letters from a foreign sales agent, or if I can't get a letter, then I'll at least talk to sales agents to get like a ballpark on what they think the film will do, foreign or domestically. And then with the talent, like if I do have talent in it, what do they mean in the world? Like does it translate to South Africa? Does it translate to Asia? These are all ways to kind of like win the investor. Again, I think finding the money isn't as hard as the distribution. So, for one of the films I'm involved with, what we did was that we kind of just read the trades meaning Variety, Hollywood Reporter, Deadline specifically, and in the trades every day there's announcements. So people announce like, hey, I just started a film company and I'm financing movies. And that's what my team and I did, and there was a company that was like a mid-sized company. They weren't too big, they weren't too small, and we approached them and said, hey, we're making this movie. We see what kind of movies you guys are making. Would you be interested? And we engaged. And long story short, the investor committed to one movie that he financed for $1.5 million, and now we're talking about doing another movie for $5 million. And it was just the research and due diligence. Like we came with our I's dotted, T's crossed, and it made sense to the investor.
Great. Yeah, man. Thank you.
So the question was, how do you get cast, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to just respond a little bit on that. I think that's really, you touched on so many things that were great, but one of the more important ones that was sort of brushed over was the notion of a team. You had several producers who were using their networks to bring people in, and the notion that people talk about films as 3-humped camels because there are so many people involved, and it's very hard to get it to move. So the key is to have a team with the same vision, and then use that team and use the resources of that team to attract the people that you want. Because you can't do it alone. If any of you are writer, director, producers and think you're going to do this alone, you're out of your minds. You should quit. Because you need other people who are going to help you. And the reason you were successful is because your teammates helped you reach the cast that you wanted to reach. And the thing I like to say in these kind of meetings is that it's very difficult to approach a cast member directly through his agent, which you also said. And the reason is because the agent only gets paid when the deal closes. If you can reach the actor through his dentist or his gardener, you're going to find a way in that's going to get them interested in your film. Or even more directly, if one of your team members has a direct relationship, you can reach that actor, because the producer and the director are going to talk to the actor and convince the actor that this is a script that they should do. And that's what really is going to drive the actor to say yes, is being able to sit and talk to the director and talk about the role and say what is it that they need to do. It's very important to do that, but you can't have that conversation if you're going right through the front door. You got to go through the side door.
Yeah, I think what I was trying to get at in like a very roundabout way is when you guys write your scripts, you really have to make a choice. Are you going to do it like you were saying, like just because you have to tell this story, you cannot go to sleep at night because you have to get it out, and it doesn't matter if it makes money or it gets sold, or as you see, it's a long, hard process to go the other way, to get cast and financing and distribution. And I think when you write your script, you have to think about, can I do this all by myself, or do I need the help of all these people that you guys are speaking about? So along those lines, I'm just going to switch it up a little bit, is writing the script, there's now a ton of amazing new software. So I'm just curious, how many of you guys use Final Draft? Do you? Steven?
Yeah, I actually, this is kind of, well, I was in talks with Final Draft over something totally unrelated, but I was talking with two of the programmers, and I had mentioned something to them that they don't have a boneyard in Final Draft. Like, you know, when you're doing, let's say, a schedule, and there's certain scenes that you just can't fit in, and you just don't know where they're going to go, so you put them in the boneyard.
Right.
So I said, why don't you guys do the same thing with Final Draft? Because all the time when I'm writing, there'll be certain sections where I don't want to delete it. I just want to keep it, because you want to keep it formatted. I just want to throw it over here, and then I'm going to put it in somewhere else. And so they love the idea, and in the recent iteration of Final Draft, they actually put it in. If you go to YouTube, you can see the instructions on how to use the boneyard. So they took my idea. So.
Right. So it's like, you know, things like that are changing the way we write films,
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, it just makes it so much faster. I use a program now called Slugline. I don't know if you've ever.
I haven't
used
heard of that one.
And it's on.
Oh wait, I think I have heard of that one.
Yeah, it's I think John August might be involved in it, the writer. And it is such a simple program that like makes your workflow so quick that my 6-year-old son is writing scripts now. I mean, it's amazing. So I think. What's that?
You can buy it for relatively cheap.
Slugline? Yeah. No, it's like
I think you're underestimating a 6-year-old.
That's right. Yeah. That's not my son, Marc. So I guess what I'm saying is that when we first started out, there was only Final Draft and like Movie Magic,
yeah.
and they cost like $300, and if not, you had to like write it on Word and make it look like. But now you can really churn out scripts that look professional very quickly. So I would also do as much research as I can on the new software, this Slugline, Highland. What are some of the free ones that are out?
Something.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So I would look at that as well. So Steve is the only one in this room for sure who has a franchise, essentially, right?
You could call it that.
Yeah. So having a franchise, like, I mean, when you wrote the first chapter of it, did you ever envision having these sequels, and did you layer enough things in the writing to think, oh, I want to do more and more, I want to work in this world more?
Yeah, foolishly I did. It was a novel before it was a movie, and I broke it up into 3 parts. And it got a little complicated because I realized that the beginning of it was something that I couldn't shoot on a low budget. So I ended up taking the middle part of the story and doing that first. And then the second film, Bereavement, was actually a prequel to it. But I knew because of the nature of what that was about and the scope of it, there was no way I could do it on a minuscule budget. So when the first one was a success, I was able to go out and raise a multi-million-dollar budget to go out and get real cast. It was actually, if you're familiar with Alexandra Daddario, it was her first feature film, and she's blown up since then. But it also starred Michael Biehn from The Terminator, so I was able to get actual names to be in the film. But and it's something that I always envisioned completing. It was 3 films, but I never actually thought I would do it. But I've been lucky enough to be able to see it full circle. Yeah.
So again, like when you're writing, always layer, right? So I mean, if it's great,
It's always good to write well. Yes.
because as we know, there are only 2 things that will get you guys money: talent or IP. That's it. I don't care what anybody says. The only independent films that make any money, like real money and financing, are based upon IP and leads.
By IP, he's talking about intellectual
Oh, sorry.
property.
Not I actually, which I do. Right. Intellectual property is one of the most.
I only know
crucial
what
things.
IP means because I've sued people, so that's the only reason why I'm familiar with that terminology. So.
Right. So it's very important for you guys to all know to protect that, because that's all you have. So if you have something successful and people want to make more of it or make it into something bigger, they are going to rely on that for the financing. And the exciting thing now is you could create IP in a variety of digital formats. You could do it as a web series, a short film, a novel like you just did recently. Marc, do you want to speak about that a little bit, about finding IP or protecting your IP? Because like as
No, let's not turn this into that.
That's
a rabbit hole that nobody wants to go
I'll
down.
never stop talking. So what we should do is just let people ask questions about it that matter to them.
okay,
Well, yeah, let's. Why don't we open it up to questions? I'm sure you guys have tons of questions to ask us.
They look like they don't, but.
No, I see
They
people
wanna get
writing.
the hell out of here.
Some people have notebooks out there, so.
Hey man, just mess around.
Does the IP protection, is that across mediums? Like if you write a story, a book, nobody can make a film with that same story, nobody can make a stage play, does it cover everything?
You know what, let's not take this into that tangent, but let me just say this. I wrote a script back in 2008, and I was approached by a company who did the Final Destination movies, a company called Practical Pictures. They loved me, and they loved my previous film. They wanted me to direct a movie for them, really, really bad remake of Motel Hell, which I read the script and said, no, there's no way I'm doing it. So, but I kept them in mind, and I sent them my script 6 months later. They loved my script. They said, we're going to produce this. We're going to make this into a movie. And we spent about 1.5 years tweaking the script to get it just right so that when we could send it out to all the producers out there, financiers and studios, we would get the money, we would go and produce this film. Now, I believe these guys because they've made a lot of big films like the Final Destination series, and so I bought it. And about 1.5 years later, I saw my film come out as a TV series. So what happened was, they liked my idea. I didn't want to sell it because I wanted to direct it, so they just stole it, and they turned it into a TV series. And basically, they kept me off the market for 1.5 years while they were doing this. And because they were first to market, I really had no leg to stand on. Even though I had copyright, even though I was registered with the Writers Guild of America, it doesn't matter. Because whoever's first to market has that power. And if you've ever tried to sue a studio, because this was Fox, okay, I actually was able to bring it to an IP attorney who said, this is the worst, most blatant case of plagiarism I've ever seen. This is the same attorney who sued Fox over the movie Dodgeball and won the writers $8 million. We sued, and we didn't even get to court. It was dismissed, even though we had about 600 pages of itemized things that pointed to theft. So the point I'm trying to make here is there really is no way to protect your IP.
I disagree.
No, you can disagree all you want, but I've been to that fire and I fought that battle. And I can tell you that you versus the studios, you will lose. Okay, you can count on your hand how many of these have actually won. So it's very important to protect your IP and don't be sending your script out to just anybody. Make sure that you get NDA agreements. Make sure that whoever you're sending it to, that there's a chain of title. Like, for example, if you have someone like Marc here who could send your script out for you, there's a chain there that it came through him. There's proof. Okay, I sent it through a direct email with these guys. So I really didn't have a leg to stand on because it didn't go through any kind of chain. So as much as, yeah, it's great to think that I have a copyright and that I'm registered and all that, when the shit hits the fan, you're not going to have a leg to stand on. And it's really, really tough to fight that battle. And you don't want to. So keep it close. Don't send your script out to script contests because those are all just farming things to just steal your ideas. Trust me, it never goes anywhere and you never get anything out of it.
Well, so let me address a couple of questions. I think it was a more basic question. Copyright subsists at the moment of creation when the work is fixed in a tangible medium of expression. Okay? He has a copyright in this right now, John does, because he is recording it and it is fixed in a tangible medium of expression, and he's doing it
I haven't
now.
signed a release yet, so.
And if he wants to use it elsewhere, he's going to have to get permission and all that stuff. But there's a copyright in that film right now. You don't have to register it. It's done. It's there. If you want to sue somebody, you have to register it. I'm not going to relitigate Steve's thing, but if you have a copyright in your script, in your treatment, in your webisode, and you want to explore it and expand on it, that's the time to hire a lawyer who's going to protect you in this, and who's going to make sure that when you send it out, you are protected, and the people who receive it know you're not fooling around.
That's the key. That's the key. So do it right from the beginning.
Inception, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. I don't want to relitigate Steve's thing, because actually I was one of the lawyers he called about it, and I said, you got a great case, I can't do it. So it's enormously important that you make sure your work is protected. And to other things he said were extremely valuable. Don't send your script out willy-nilly. People say, how can I protect my script when I send it out? Well, we all lock our cars when we drive up here, right? And if someone wants to break the law and steal your car, you can't stop it. But you can do all that you can to protect your script and create the opportunity to get damages in the event it's stolen. So copyright is there. It's across the board, which is your question. It covers all media. In contracts, we like to write, I grant you the rights to this property in all media, now known or hereafter developed, is often in a contract because we don't know what's going to happen. Unless you don't want to give that. I'm buying rights right now for a client of mine where I only get the motion picture rights. I don't get sequel rights. I don't get stage rights. All of those things are being held by the author. So and that's part of what copyright is. It's divisible. It's divisible by media. It's divisible in time. It's divisible in territory. It's divisible. But owning that copyright is really clear, and making sure you have the rights you need to do what you want if you're buying someone else's script is also wildly important. Because otherwise, you won't attract any money. So, any other questions?
Sorry, are you saying that, okay, so let's say I write a treatment. First thing I do before I send it to a story consultant or anything else is I go to the copyright office and I register it.
You don't even have to do that.
I know you're saying this, but what you're saying is I should contact you before I send it to that story consultant. And you will charge me a rate for what? Looking it over, or you were implying that I should have you in the loop before I.
Because I would tell you right now.
Anybody.
Right now, I would tell if you had me in the loop. What I would tell you is to put a copyright notice on your treatment.
Yes.
Right. You didn't mention that, and I would
After
not.
being registered with the copyright office.
No, you don't have to register it with the copyright office. You put a copyright on it. Copyright.
Yeah.
See in the circle. Year. Name, and you put the words all rights reserved, and that's every time you send it out. And when you send it to the story consultant, you put in your cover note, I'm engaging you as my consultant to advise me about the quality of this script. I own all the rights. Now you don't have to talk to me because you now know what to say. But that's all this is about, is making sure that everybody knows that you're claiming rights in your property and you're not giving it away. If the story consultant then sells your story to somebody else, she's in a whole lot more trouble than violating your copyright. She doesn't have a business. So it's not going to happen.
Right.
It will happen at a studio that's relatively small, that's looking for ideas, and that's stringing somebody along. So when we say send it out and protect yourself, it's when you send it out for a commercial purpose, not for a consulting purpose.
Have you guys used the Writers Guild thing where you?
Yeah, let me just add one thing to what Marc said. And this, we're going down a really depressing hole here, but with regards to copyright, if you don't actually register with the Copyright Office, you cannot sue for damages. So it's very important. What he's saying is absolutely true. Once you write something and you put your little name on it, it is, specifically copyrighted. But if you do go to lawsuits and you do hire a team of attorneys, they can't sue for damages unless they can actually pull it up from the registry.
Better to spend the $55.
It's absolutely worth it to do that. Yeah.
And as to the Writers Guild, to me, it's a waste of money.
Yeah,
Complete
Writers
waste,
Guild is
utter
not a
waste
good
of money.
thing, right?
Utter waste of money.
Yeah, I used to be the WGA West, and it was like and it was why. You need to copyright it with the U.S. government.
Yeah.
Let's be clear why it's a waste of money. It costs money to do it. It only lasts 5 years, and all it does is prove that the script is in existence. For the same money, you can file a copyright registration, and it will not only get you the keys to the courthouse to file a lawsuit, it's forever. And there's no question about who owns it. The Writers Guild is a waste of time. You can do it if you want to put that little WGA registered thing on there, but it means nothing as a legal matter. Zero.
So let's open it up to some other questions.
Yeah, I'll give you an uplifting one. So the last 5 years, I've actually seen a change and heard a change through podcasts like Script Notes, John O's, Craig Nathan, that there's a sea change in, let's put it this way, being a script writer and just throwing a script over the wall is not enough. That you really should be a producer in terms of producing a proof of concept. In other words, your calling card is, here's the story, and here's the script, but here's actually a proof of concept. And I'm just wondering if you're trying to engage other producers, major ones with bigger pockets, that's a better path than just trying to get your screenplay in front of somebody.
Well, I think it depends on the production company and the producer. I know Damien Chazelle did that for Whiplash. Like when he went to Jason Blum, he didn't have any credits or warrant anything, and so he shot it as a short and went back, and so that worked out. So I think it depends on the producer or the production company that you're going to. Like if you're going to a Blumhouse, I think it makes sense. If you're going to like a Bad Robot, but if you're going to something like that's like indie friendly, like a Killer Films, I don't think you need that. So I think it varies from case to case. I've been in a room with buyers and with like the buyers and with the sales reps and the distributors in the same room, and they've kind of argued back and forth. Some of them said, well, if you just bring us the concept, that'll work. And others said, we need to see a proof of concept. So I think it depends on the SOP or the individual that you're dealing with. Everyone has their own way of doing business in this industry.
Some producers I know are actually taking the feature and extracting a short from it to stand on its own, either playing in festivals or actually going. Somebody I know went to American Movie Classics, and she got a feature cut down. She got Jazz Jennings attached.
Okay.
And she actually got AMC interested with just the extraction of the story, because it was maybe a part of the first act. And that was her calling card. And AMC said, yeah, okay, we see this works. And at least you've attached somebody. Maybe the attachment was worth more than the actual content. But she hired a production company, spent $12,000 to get it produced, and it was more than she wrote the script as well.
I wouldn't say it's a specific model. People are doing it. Like there's a movie called Skin that won the Oscar, and it was the same exact thing. Like I know the filmmakers behind it, and it was shot as a feature, and in between they cut the short, and it ended up winning, this Oscar, and it's about to come out in like a week or two.
Well, I saw a lot of hands at other people, producers here. They're not just just the writers. They're writers, directors, producers, and I'm wondering if the producers had narrowed their focus to a proof of concept that maybe that's your calling card. That's what you go out with, including the script, of course.
Yeah, I would say that.
Can't hurt.
I've been through this a lot. I've shot things. I've sent the script out. The one thing we all in this room have to know is that agents and managers are pretty. They don't want to spend a lot of time doing anything.
You can show it to them.
Yeah,
unless you got a meeting with a producer.
No. But I think what you're speaking to more is what's called like a sizzle reel, which is
something like that. Not a trailer or something. With
like a little more. And I think that is key. If you could get a great looking sizzle reel that explains what your concept is, what your show is, what the look is, what the feel is, and you get them excited about that, then they will read your script, or then they will watch your feature film, or that's, I think, a very valuable thing. I think that's more valuable than even shooting a film. In certain instances. Isn't that how you guys feel too, or? Yeah. Sure.
No, I don't. I'm naturally the negative guy.
Okay.
The reason is because if you go down a particular path with a sizzle reel, you have gone down that path. If the producer wants to go this way, you're already down that path. You have to convince them to move to your path. If they take the script and they have a discussion with you and you have a realization together about what the property is, you have that realization together. If you're already telling them it, if it's absolutely the only way you're going to do it, absolutely. But if it's 10 degrees to the left and your sizzle reel doesn't do it, you've lost that participant to whom you show it. I'm not saying it's wrong, and I've never heard of a reality TV show that ever got made without a sizzle reel, but that's my view. It's not to say it's wrong. There's a risk.
You're saying the risk is limiting.
It does limit you because you're going in this path, whatever that path is. It may be the only path.
The same thing?
I'm sorry?
Doesn't your screenplay do the same thing?
Absolutely not.
Well,
The
how do you
screenplay
see-
is only words on a page. The visual manifestation of that is something that the director and the director of photography and the actors will bring together to create something very different than what's on the page. Very different.
Yeah, but all of us here will want to be writer, directors. Like, I mean, we want our, you know,
I'm
vision.
talking
Well,
about
I'm not
enlisting
saying I'm
a
right. I'm
producing
saying this is
partner.
a risk to your proposal. That's all.
Well, but I mean, on the flip side though, the people who read scripts are usually some kid who's out of school, who's going down a checklist, who's doing 7, 6, 5, 4, and you can only get to the source once. And if you could really sell the guy who could say yes, you could have a show. That's
I agree.
my
Well,
experience.
you could also, if you're an independent filmmaker looking for financing, like my first film, I had a script and I took it to a lot of people with money who I could not convince them to give me anything to make the film. So what I did was I went out and shot a 5-minute short of the script. You know, I took a couple of scenes from the movie and shot it. And you know, film's a visual medium. So when I went back to all these investors and showed them the trailer that I had cut together, I got money right away. So I was able to raise some money in 1 week of showing that trailer, whereas I spent months and months and months prior to that getting no response.
That's exactly what I mean.
Okay, so in that sense, you know, when you're showing somebody, yeah, this is a movie and this is real, and I actually have the means to bring this into reality, when you show them the trailer, you know, because film's a visual medium, they look at that and say, oh, that's what you meant. Oh, that looks cool. Oh, and I get it, it's a horror film, or it's a drama, or a comedy. You know, they kind of get at least a visual taste of what it is, and it's a lot easier to convince them that way. But again, that worked for me, I don't know if it worked for everybody.
Jim?
Yeah,
Sure.
I'm going to try to formulate this as a question, but when you were talking about your short, the scenes you pulled together, did you get permission? Did you get, I don't know, what do you call it? Did you get, like, insurance? Did you get location? Did you have people sign releases? Because it feels like, earlier you mentioned, and I agree, that we have the technology, you can use your phone, you can make it look great or whatever, but I think, Mark, I think you might agree with me, you just can't shoot anything. You know, you have to get permission left and right. And I agree, you know, sign a release, I agree with all that too. But, you know, you could pick up your camera, do a scene, and the car races by and you're hearing Led Zeppelin in the background. Or you got McDonald's by accident in the background. You can't take that and show it to the world.
Well, it depends on what the end product is for. If I'm just using this to show a couple of people in a room, I don't care what's in it. I don't care who's in it. I don't care. You know, I'm an outlaw. You know, I'll do whatever I want. You know, if I plan to go and then release it, you know, worldwide, yeah, then I got to go get all those things signed. But that wasn't the intention. The intention was just to prove I could.
Right, prove that you could. Okay, then I got you there. So, but if you just want to make a 5-minute film, the idea is you want the whole world to see it. You know, so I feel like, you know, you need...
But that's different. But that's different.
This is a promo.
He's talking about a proof of concept,
Right.
not an actual end.
Sorry.
Yeah. It was just a different animal.
Yeah, so, I mean, I feel like if you're going to make a 5-minute movie, you're going to need Marc, you're going to have to be able to afford Marc, he's going to be worth every penny. This is my negative, I'm sorry, going down the negative rabbit hole, whatever you want to call it, but I just
I'm
feel like
leaving,
you
guys,
really
sorry.
have to protect yourself. What is that?
No, I'm just kidding.
No, but that's,
I didn't hear it, sorry.
that's where the collaboration comes in. You have other producers you enlist, perhaps. Yeah, and everybody you enlist is another deal.
And
I
more
I
expensive.
believe, yes, you need, as soon as you go outside yourself, you start to need a lawyer. You start to need an entertainment lawyer to keep things straight.
Get in here? If you're making a 5-minute film and you're just going to show it at film festivals and you're not going to show it in Sundance, nobody cares.
No, if you want to take it as far as you can possibly take it, that is what I'm
No,
talking about.
but
not
where is
just-
that, Jim?
Okay, we need to stop this discussion.
Why?
We really do, because it doesn't go anywhere. Because how many people in this room want to make a 5-minute film?
You know what, sometimes I do, and I get stopped by this.
And here's the answer.
Sorry,
Here's
that's
the
just why
answer.
you can talk
You
about
should
it.
get, you don't need a lawyer. You don't need a lawyer. You need releases for everything. You need to be careful. There are no trademarks in the background, and you need clearance for your music. Stop. That's it. You don't need a lawyer. That's all. That's the truth.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, shoot it, man. Just shoot it. Yeah.
That's
Just
what I wanted to
shoot
hear.
it.
Thank you.
But you need paper. I don't have to do the paper, and a law student doesn't have to do the paper. You already have the paper.
Yeah.
I know you.
You're very high strung. You sure you want to be a lawyer?
I think making films is the hardest thing on the planet to do.
I agree.
I want people to make.
I have an app on my phone that checks your blood pressure.
Thank you for answering my question.
Well, I think
I just want to throw this in. I know you said the legal thing, and there's this thing called the VLA, is the Volunteer Lawyers Association. So if you can't afford a lawyer, you know, you can apply for it.
I think
And
that's only if you're in New York. I thought that was only if you're in New York York City? Because I've worked with them before. I thought if something happened or whatever, it is within New York City.
Well,
tell me more. You tell me.
if that's the case, I mean, I'm not sure,
Right.
but find someone that is in New York, and on this project or whatever project you're working on, they can apply. Someone that lives in one of the 5 boroughs, and as long as they qualify, like there's like an income threshold, so as long as you don't surpass that, you can get an attorney that will, basically be your legal for the project, and that will give you, like you don't have to pay a retainer. They'll be on the project for. It's not always someone in entertainment. Keep that in mind. It may be someone that is crossing over into entertainment, so they may be getting experience or knowledge from other lawyers. So you don't always get an entertainment attorney. But if that's something of worry, I know people always worry about, legal and contracts and things like that, which is very important. But if you can't afford it, there's ways around, to make it work. So I just wanted to throw that out.
Visual effects are really good.
Yeah.
You can take that McDonald's right out of the shot.
That's true, that's true.
Do we want to move on to the next question?
We got
Other questions?
one out here.
I am just a writer, and I don't know anything about making films or anything. I just wanted to know, after I have written a manuscript for a book and one for a movie, where shall I go? Who shall I talk to first? I mean, what's the beginning?
So you have a manuscript and a book, you said?
Yeah, I mean, they are separate.
And you want to turn it into a screenplay?
One of them is a screenplay. I mean, I wrote as a screenplay. Who shall I go? What can I do?
Well, my opinion always is like, anytime I get a script, I read it myself, and like if I were in your shoes, I'd share it among my peers and get feedback and see, because usually scripts need work, and get coverage on it, within a trusted group of people that to see if it's ready to go out there, because most of the time, when we receive scripts, the scripts aren't really that great. I say out of 100, maybe 1 is good. So it's important to, know that it's ready to go out there. And let's say in a perfect world, it is ready to go out there. It's on you to build a team, because it's not really you, I think, as a writer to go out there on your own, because film is a collaborative effort and sport. So you can't do it all. You could do some of the research, but I think it would be smart to partner up with a production company or producer that isn't interested in that type of material, and then kind of they'll advise and come up with a strategy, with you on how to move forward, what the execution is, so you guys go to a director first, does it make sense to go after the money first, should you apply for grant money? Because there are organizations and festivals and grants that help finance scripts, or at least get you in development. And I think that, in your case, it would be smart to have like the right people around you. You would, because you don't have the experience and the wisdom and knowledge yet. So that's the leverage. So there's someone out there looking for you, for a script like that, because they don't have the creative juices that you have. And you're looking for that person. So it's building that trust, friendship, partnership, marriage. I think that's the level that would be next after you get adequate feedback to make sure that it's strong to be seen by professionals.
My question is, where can I find that person?
Well, another thing you can do
Right
is
here.
you can also write a small query letter about your screenplay and send it out to agents, and try and get some of them to read your script, and possibly gain representation that way. Just like a little synopsis about what?
Literary agents or
Well, for your book, you'd go to a literary agent, but you'd go to more of a film agent if you wanted to sell the screenplay.
Also, we have a screenwriting panel tomorrow called The Right Stuff. I don't know what time it is, it'll be in the journal, but there will be actually writers addressing all that kind of stuff. So.
I just engaged Lauren to assess my story. He's going to be, and he says that's the way to begin. Costs money, but he's a good story consultant. And you might begin that. You're way ahead of the curve, but he will also, for pay, analyze your screenplay. He won't hook you up with a producer, but there's producers here at this festival, and I did notice that somebody last night named Anna had actually done something I've never seen before. She submitted a production request to this meetup, and I happened to look at it. It came over the mail from the meetup, and I said, somebody has a script and wants to produce something August 4th. And I was thinking, I've never seen that before. But this festival may be one of the few that actually have a meetup attached to it, right? So, I don't want to say that you should submit, begin submitting scripts for producers in a meetup, but I had never seen that, and I personally looked at it and said, yeah, we do a project a year, maybe two, and if it was good, and a good script, we might entertain doing that. But that's a novel way to approach it instead of the submission process.
Two other things. I would get a group of actors and have them read it, because I think that oftentimes, like we have this little dinner party where we sit and we read each other's scripts, and we hear them out. And a lot of times, just hearing it and getting the feedback from actors is very helpful as far as changes or tone. There's also a website called Inktip that I think is a sponsor here. Yeah, where you could put your script up there. There are services where you could have your script be, it's called coverage. Sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's not. It's like a scoring sheet. And the Blacklist is a great website. Normally your script is going to be read by some kid, like I said, just out of school, and they are going to read your script in a certain way and score it a certain way. So it's valuable to get the skills to know how to write a certain way, so these kids will then bring it up to the next level. But yeah, the other question.
I have a question for you. You have a franchise,
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Never been.
You have a franchise. My question is, when you were pitching it, is it worth to say it's a franchise, or people think like you're dreaming, or is it better focus on the first film, and then if it does well, you say, and this is a franchise?
Well, in my case, even though I had planned to do all three films, until they actually exist, it's not a franchise, right? So in hindsight, oh yes, now it's a franchise. But when I was doing it, it was more of a pipe dream. I was just lucky enough to be able to see it all the way through. But yeah, if you have an idea for 3 films, you have 3 scripts, let's say, and because I've heard that Hollywood loves to make sequels, so it could be a great place to start to say, not only do I have this, but it can go here, here, and here, and we could make all 4 of these films. I'm sure plenty of people would love to hear that you have that kind of a grand design. Sure.
And yeah. Do you have a question?
Yeah. I actually wrote a TV show pilot as a proof of concept, and I was wondering if you guys personally are trying to transition over to TV. I know it's very transitional TV and movies now, but any process changes or differences between trying to get into movies and getting into TV, which is what I'm trying to do.
Good question.
I mean, the process is different, but it's still the same. I mean, you still have to go through the same discipline to get something like that made. You still have to cast it, you still have to produce it, you still have to get somebody to invest in it. So it's really just,
I have the pilot already.
Yeah. It's just identifying the right producing team that works in that space. So it's really up to you to who you want to direct that to. Like bring it to somebody who actually makes stuff for TV.
Is it playing here?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know TV that well, but from the limited knowledge that I do know, it's very important to get a showrunner. It's about the showrunner. If you don't have a solid showrunner, then it's slim pickings, because the network, what will happen in a perfect world is that it's usually assigned a showrunner. If you have a showrunner, then at that point it opens up the conversation with the network, and the network trusts the production company with the showrunner, or the showrunner. So I think that's the key component is finding, because we can make $100 million movies. It doesn't matter. They don't. Film and television is completely different. I mean, a miniseries is a little different, but if you're looking to do like primetime TV, what really moves the needle and people pay attention is like who the showrunner is. So I think that would be really helpful. Again, my experience is limited in that from what I've seen.
To add to what he's saying too, like the difference with TV is they usually know where it's going to play before it's even made. Right? So I did a show for Sci-Fi. I was hired to direct a couple of episodes of the show called School Spirits. But they already knew it was going to be on NBC Sci-Fi. They knew when it was going to come out. They knew when it was going to premiere. Sci-Fi funded the production costs, and then they delivered it. So it kind of works backwards in that way. Like when you make a film, sometimes when you do it independently, you don't really know where it's going to play. You don't know how big it's going to get. But with TV, it's a little bit more contained. For the most part, you can make a pilot, and then you use that pilot to get an order from like let's say NBC. They'll place an order and then you fill it. So I think that really the first thing is just bringing that proof of concept that you have to somebody that produces TV shows, get an interest. If you've already shot the pilot, because you're saying you have something that's being screened, what they may do is recast it, with name talent, shoot it again, and then send that out to all the studio, all the networks, and then try and get some buy-in from that. That also includes things like Netflix now, because of course they buy series as well.
There's another part of this, and the point made about showrunners is absolutely essential. You won't be able to get it done without a showrunner. And if you haven't noticed, because there's so many TV and alternatives out there, there aren't very many showrunners available. So the biggest hurdle in getting a TV show made today is finding an acceptable showrunner. And this is a segue into something I really wanted to talk about before we ended. The deal is very different as well. It's rare that there's a back end in television. I mean, it's rare that there's a back end in film, but that's not because we don't all talk about it. It just means that most films don't make their money back. But those that do make their money back, there is often a net profit participation. I represented a producer for a short while who produced Love Story, and 20 years after that picture was made, he was still collecting royalties. So films make money, and last time I did one of these programs, I was surprised to learn that there's a large group of people that don't know what the investors expect when they make their films. And I want you to walk away with this, if nothing else. If you're going to make a film for, let's say, $1 million, and you go out and raise $1 million from a group of investors, $100,000 apiece from 10 investors, they're going to get their money back first. After production is finished and someone comes along and buys the film for $75,000 in Spain, that $75,000 is going to go right back to the investors in accordance with their ownership interest. And that keeps happening until they get back their $1 million and a kicker. It's the opportunity cost for that $1 million. And that kicker is usually between 15 and 25%. I've seen it at 0 and I've seen it at 40%, but it's usually around 20%. So the investors get back their money 120%, and then they get 50% of the profits. And then you as the producer get the other 50% of the profits. And then you have to pay the talent and the director and the writer and everybody else their share. If that basic model applies across the board for all revenue sources, and what's really unique about New York, though, is that New York, if you film entirely in New York, it will give you money to shoot here. They will give you 18 to 20% of the total cost of your picture if you do it all in New York. It's 30% below the line of certain qualifying expenses come back to you. If you shoot upstate, north of Rockland in Westchester County, it's 40% of the labor cost that you shoot up there. So New York State will give you back the money to shoot there. Georgia will give you 30%. New Jersey has a tax credit. There are over 40 states that will give you money to shoot in their states. Now, you usually can't use that money to shoot the film because you won't get it until after the film is finished, but there are structures that we have that will allow you to borrow against that credit and allow you to use that money. So if you're going to get a $300,000 check in 3 years, you can go to a lender and borrow against it in some circumstances and get a good chunk of that money to use in your film. So the two things I want to make clear is the investors get back 120% of their picture and then 50% of the profits. If it's one investor, it all goes to him. If it's a small group, it's shared. And the other 50% goes to the producer who pays everybody else. And the second thing is that New York State and many countries in the world and 40 states in this country provide tax credit or rebates for you to shoot your film there. So part of your budget is covered by the government. It's really important to understand that.
So one thing, so at noon we're gonna like kind of wrap, but in terms of what you asked, there's two things I want to say. There are specific festivals that do television. There is Series Fest that just happened in Denver. That's a television film festival, so you should probably take a look at that for next year. There's one. Okay, yeah, my bad. I'll let you plug it. I'll give you the mic. You can talk about it.
You plug it. You're
okay. Well, I can't speak to it as not.
Never heard of that one.
The Norfolk Film Festival, which he'll talk about a bit. There's also one in Austin that happens in June. I don't remember the exact name. It's Austin something. But that's stuff that's already on network. But these are people that you want to get in front of anyway. You know, showrunners will be there. And then there's the I think it's the ITV Fest. Yeah, what used to be in Maine, but now it's in Minneapolis. And what's really cool is that they have a partnership with this agency called Abrams Artists, which is a very big talent agency. So they have some type of, I don't know exactly what the deal is, but I think that I want to say they're going to sign at least one person that goes to the festival that wins, something along that I've heard through the grapevine. So you kind of want to put your ears to the radar in terms of television. And then the other thing I was going to throw out is that I'm part of this organization. It's pretty cool. It's called HRTS. It stands for Hollywood Radio Television Society. It's out of LA, New York. In New York, there's two chapters. There's like the junior chapter, then there's the second level. In LA, it goes up to the third level, which is like if you're head of like the network. And it pretty much is, you pay like an annual fee. It's not a lot of money. Like I think HRTS is like $69 for the year. And they do panels like this every month. You know, like Ryan Murphy will come out and you could like listen to him speak, but you'll probably have to go to LA to do that. And if you don't want to go to LA, you could probably watch it on streaming. They have like a embedded website. But they do like mentorships, and this is a way to get in front of like the network. So I was in LA and I went to their event and I met the head of Lifetime, and you know, we had some rapport already because of another project, but just like that, just said, hey, I want you to come meet Sebastian, and I flew back to LA 2 months later and met with Sebastian. So I feel like that could be like an ace in the deck for you, or a back pocket, you know, like join this organization because it's so, you know, inexpensive, and the resources you get is so worth it. You know, you'll be in front of like the head of ICM, the head of you know, the department that makes the decision, and it's an indirect way to get through the gatekeeper, because that's really what it is. This business is all about relationships. Right. If you have the relationship, you know, you could be the dumbest person in the world, but you have the relationship, things, and I see it all the time. There's people that shouldn't be making movies, but they make movies because they know the right person, and the smarter person may not, or the more talented person may not have the relationship, and they're kind of like spinning their wheels. So just giving you a way to circumvent the system, but talk about Northwood.
No, I won't. I won't plug into that. But what I will say is there is a disconnect, I think, with us who are independent filmmakers who are transitioning to independent TV, which is no one, I can guarantee you, no one is going to greenlight your show based on one show. I think we all thought because of Amazon and Netflix, and they're so hungry for content, they're just willing to invest in anything, and unfortunately that's not the honest case. The honest case is that they are making less shows because not all of their shows are doing well. And if you really want to sell a show, you need to have season 6 planned out. Like, because when you get in the room with these showrunners who I've been working with for the last 3 months, you need to tell them specific character arcs, like so you need a show Bible along with your show. So when you get that chance, like, they might not watch your whole show. They might just watch a little bit, and if they're hooked enough, they might meet with you. But that is only so that they could bring your show to a network, and then you're probably even out of it because they have their own infrastructure involved where you need to go through their development process. And for guys like us who are, indie filmmakers, sitting with a network executive is the most horrific experience of your life. They're mean, they're vapid, they don't pay attention, they're doing a million things. I know we've all been in that room, and it is not great.
But if you're the writer, you get attached as the creator as well.
Yeah.
You gotta be attached somehow.
Yeah, right. But yes, you can be.
You don't see any money though the first year, like they
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, you don't see any money until it gets like reviewed and starts. Yeah, just being frank,
Yeah. This is
I
an
stay
honest
away
chat.
from TV. It's not really, film. I feel like you have more control.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Indie style.
Indie style.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can make something that can be a big hit, and then people want to work with you. With TV, I feel like you have, I'm being a negative Nancy, but I feel like you have to kind of like kiss ass and still get like the short stick. You know what I mean?
Always, yeah.
They don't care what you've done in film, unless you're like Scott Rudin.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Or
Like he can do
Spielberg.
whatever he wants.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or Michael Bay. But.
Right.
They don't care if you're like your indie made 20 million. It doesn't mean anything.
Right.
It's still chump change. It's weird as it may sound.
Okay, so
How
if
did
you need 6 seasons out, how specific do you have to be? Do you have to have a storyline for each episode?
No, okay. I was exaggerating. But what I meant to say was like you need to have a clear vision of your show, where the characters are going. What does your show? The question is always, what does your show look like in season 4? And a lot of the times I'm like, I don't know. Like honestly, like I'm really unsure of it's part of the process. So yeah, but that's the number one question, and like you have to have an answer, or they will just gloss over and say, whatever. Isn't that what you've also found, Steven, or no? Okay, Steven knows. Steven just owns a franchise.
I've encountered it, and
When?
it usually goes out 3 years. I don't see it go out 4.
Okay.
And Netflix actually there's been studies on it. They usually cancel their shows even that are successful.
Right.
After 3 years.
Right.
So it's a 3-year vision and a 4 or 5 year outline, but 3 years. And the more you can do for them, the less they have to do. You have to remember that. So if you can actually outline the episodes through season 3, one at a time, and they see that vision, and then they can tweak it,
right.
Your chances of success are significantly enhanced.
Yes. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
You haven't really talked too much about distribution, getting that distribution deal. Maybe talking a little bit about kind of the payment, getting from people. I mean, not just, obviously, we all want to go to film festivals, we want somebody to walk up with that deal. But I mean, for most people, that doesn't happen. So maybe you guys can talk a little bit about the artistic side of the distribution, getting the distribution deal, to maybe a little bit about the legal side.
I think it's really imperative to get a sales agent. The sales agent is basically, whether it's an agency or company that specializes in domestic, foreign, or worldwide. What they'll do is that they'll represent your film. They're going to do the best efforts forward to sell it, because they know all the buyers. They know like what's trending. They know what's hot. They know how to sell. And then it's just doing the research on what sales companies to partner up with. Now, keep in mind, this business cannot be as transparent at times, so it's really on you to do your due diligence to find like what sales companies that are good, because there are companies that will guarantee, overpromise, underdeliver, and there's companies that will kind of like take you through the ringer and take all the money, and like you don't see a dime. I mean, I know financiers that have put up millions of dollars and they didn't see a dollar back. So it's really on you as the filmmaker to find like the right company to do the due diligence. But the usual process is that they'll take it to market, meaning market is like, there's a few markets in the world. AFM is a market, Berlin is a market, Cannes is a market, Sundance, things by, like it's kind of a market. People go there to buy movies and there's sales reps there. So there's a few places where they can sell it, and then there's smaller markets that the sales rep can go to, but ultimately that's where you want to lean on. You don't want to lean it on yourself because you don't have the experience of selling movies. So, you know, you're giving up 10% of that, and usually how it works is that in distribution, the distributor, you know, will take their fee, the theater will take their fee, sales rep takes their fee, then the investors get paid. And then after they recoup, as Marc was saying, then, you know, you start seeing back end. That's usually how it works. And in terms of distribution, it's usually 2 deals. It's like an MG, a minimum guarantee, meaning that Neon or Lionsgate's going to give you this lump sum, or, you know, you do like kind of like a licensing deal where it's a split, so there's no guarantee, but it's based off the performance, which is what you really, yeah, it's very risky. So you always want to push for an MG, and sometimes it's an MG with, you know, like some type of percentage split, that too. And in terms of the distribution, you know, you can sell, you know, depending on your sales agent, some of them specialize only domestic, so meaning like if it, like for example, if you're doing a Western, Westerns don't travel the foreign market. No one cares about cowboys, so it's not going to sell overseas. But if you're doing something that's like a thriller or horror, that usually travels far. You know, so internationally, buyers love action movies. Like if you're doing a Steven Seagal movie, you could probably, you know, finance that thing without an investor. You can sell the whole thing through, when I say pre-sale, so meaning what you can do is you can get contracts from different territories saying that this company in Germany will finance the movie pending you have Steven Seagal, and then you can get a bank to loan against that, and you can finance. You don't even need an investor. It's a little bit more complicated, but the idea is that you want to be able to have a sales rep that could do either your worldwide, or you can divide it up where, you know, one handles domestic and the other one handles foreign. Maybe they do all of foreign, or maybe they specialize in Europe, and then you have another foreign company that represents Australia, South America. But ultimately, it's always good to have a good sales agent. And I'll just list off a few. The top 6 like talent agencies all have departments. So your CAA, WME, ICM, UTA, Paradigm, Gerst have good sales departments. And then there's companies in New York like Cinetic, which is ran by a guy named John Sloss, who used to be a lawyer, but he runs this company now that does domestic international. There's the New York Sales Company that specializes in that. There's XYZ, which is in LA. And how do you get Voltage, which is in LA. And how to get in front of these guys is you just go to the market. You go to AFM, or you go to Cannes or Berlin, and they're all there. And they're all, you know, at the end of the day, they're looking for products. So it's not hard to find them. You know, you find one way to produce stuff is they'll tell you exactly what they're looking for. And then if you're able to put that together, you can just sell your movie like that. That's one way. I know there's filmmakers that go off that model. So that's one way to be a successful producer, to have a track record, then you can go make the stuff that you want to make. That's one way around it. But ultimately, it's really a sales company is what you want to part. Or some entertainment attorneys, you know, represent, you know, filmmakers as sales reps too. There's not many that do it. You know, it's very, there's entertainment attorneys I feel that represent production. Some of them understand distribution really well. So you need someone that knows, like a Marc, that knows distribution really well. If he's interested in doing that too, you know, because it's a lot of schlep work too, because they don't get paid until it sells too. What sales reps will do a lot of the times too is that they'll throw on these marketing fees like, oh, I went to Cannes, you know, so because of that I had to spend, you know, like it's overkill. You know, they'll get a suite, and then, you know, they're going to bill you for that later when your film sells. Like, well, I had the suite, and well, no one told you to get the suite, so you have to negotiate that up front to make sure like they're not expensing these things like through the roof, because then you won't see that money back. Even though you sell your movie and you get X amount of money, they take a big marketing fee. So that's something to keep in mind too. Is like when they're going to these places, it's not cheap to go to Cannes. You know what I mean? But at the same time, they can't charge you like $100,000, you know, on a marketing fee for that. So that's something to keep in mind in terms of distribution. But usually, what I've done is gone to festivals where there's buyers and try to get like a bid and like a bidding war. The other thing is that, you know, if I'm working, what I'll do is I'll work with a team that has maybe direct relationships to a Netflix or Amazon. So I know my specialty, but I work with another producer that has great relationships to distributors, and they've done X amount of deals, so they can go straight to the source. That's another way around it too. So that's another way to get the distribution. Or you could do like what my friend Daryl Freemark's doing. I'm running to go see his movie. He partnered up with this guy and they did self-distribution. It's not easy, you know, but he actually was able to recoup a lot of the money. And what they did was that they four-walled, they found theaters that were not as expensive, and they got bookers, they promoted, they spent their marketing dollars well, and they made their money back. And I think Thunder Road did the same thing, which was a big success.
There was another question I had. One of the ways I was thinking, I'm in pre-production on my first feature film. One of the ways I was thinking of distributing it was to stream it and then use funnel marketing, drip marketing, social media to generate people to come and see, go to the website and see. Do you think that's something that is a legit thing, or that has?
Well, how are you doing the streaming? What do you mean when you say you do the
Well,
streaming?
I'd find a host, a company that would host the stream for me. I would funnel people using the funnel marketing that is now really popular. I don't know.
What's funnel marketing? I'm sorry.
It's something that's really popular with social media. You'll see everybody promoting their products, and it's not limited to any one kind of product. And basically, what they're doing is they're funneling you to their product. And so, using that method, I would funnel people to the streaming site where they would then purchase the stream for $2 to $4.
I mean, I'm not an expert. I've never done self-distribution, but I mean, it sounds like a plan. You know, I think it would just be finding like a really good team, because you alone can't do it. Self-distribute a film. You need a core group of people doing this like full time, you know, to help you with that. But go for it.
Can I just interject a couple of things? The foreign sales agent is a terrific idea if you can get it. If your picture is generally budgeted relatively low and doesn't have a main person attached, you're not going to get that sales agent up front. Getting the sales agent up front is the key to using those pre-sales as sales. The sales agent will charge you between 5 and 25% of the price they get from the foreign distributor, who will buy all the rights in Germany, will buy all the rights in Italy for an advance, and typically that's all you'll see. So if you're going to get $50,000 from Germany and $30,000 from Italy, you're going to see $80,000 come to the sales agent. They're going to take a commission, in my experience, typically at least 15%, if not 25%. In addition, there is a marketing cost that they will take, regardless of how much they spend. You will negotiate that number. It will be ridiculously high, no matter what the number is, because it is the sales agent's business to go to every market. That's what they do for a living. But they will charge you and every other filmmaker they have a marketing fee to attend those markets. So you will take the marketing fee will come off the top. The will be paid separate after they deduct their fee. So if we got, in our example, $80,000, and there's a 15% fee, so now $12,000 stays to them, so that's $68,000. And if there's a $50,000 marketing commitment that they'll take, you'll see $12,000 from the $80,000. That's how that deal works. It is onerous, but if that's how you're going to finance your picture, that's how you're going to finance your picture. The talent agents who have sales departments do charge 10%, but that typically is only for domestic deals. They will bring you to Netflix, to Lionsgate, and that's what they will charge. So the reason I'm jumping in is because your question included legal stuff.
Yeah.
The only way you can use pre-sales to finance your picture, in my experience, is when you have named talent, and the sales company says to you, we expect to get no less than this in a list of 20 territories, and we will ask for this in those 20 territories. That take price, the minimum take price, is what the lender looks at for the value of the film in those territories, and then they will lend you a percentage of that. Yes, Steven Seagal can finance 100% of a movie, but between tax credits and foreign sales, we usually see that the value of the picture that you can cover with those debt financing instruments is no more than 60% of the picture. You're still going to need equity, so the debt you borrow money against pre-sales, you borrow money against your tax credits, and you can end up with around 40 to 60% of the picture. Any more than that is extraordinary.
I think that I think that everyone in this room has this dream that we're going to make a movie and we're going to go to Cannes and we're going to sell it for, you know, $2 million. The truth of the matter is that films in the current economy do not make a lot of money. We have to all understand that, especially independent films. It doesn't mean we shouldn't keep making movies but what I would lean on more than distribution is use your film to sell yourself, to sell everyone who sees this why your voice is special, why your talent needs to be explored and nurtured. That's why we're all here. We're here to help each other, and we're here to see if our voice can go as far as it can go. So your film is not going to make money, I guarantee you. I haven't seen it. Mine have just broken even, like barely. So it's not about making money when you do indie films. It's about the process. It's about selling yourself. It's about making friends and connections. So I wouldn't worry. Your film is probably going to wind up on like Amazon Prime and making no money like all of us. So it's not like a surprise, right? And then maybe a studio might see your film or, you know, read your script and want to hire you for more things or a TV show. So everyone in this room, I would just say sell yourselves as much as you sell your film. So.
I have two questions. One is, if you're not interested in producing and you're a writer-director or just a director, how important is it to be good at all this distribution stuff and knowing all stuff and selling yourself as the creator, or on how involved do you need to be? The second question is, how much does this stuff apply to VOD and streaming and Netflix distribution and stuff like that, in addition to the theatrical and traditional means?
I think having a theatrical is rare. I mean, extremely rare. Like, I don't know. I mean, even your film, I'm sure was like 300 screens, maybe.
Yeah, we didn't have. We had like every major city. We didn't have. Like,
Yeah.
We didn't have like 1,000 screens.
So what like helps about that though is that you have your film being listed on the streaming platforms as in theaters now, which then adds value to the sale, right? That's the thing. You don't have to know a lot if you know someone who does and you trust them, but I would say learn as much as you can and get involved with the distributor, learn the market, like learn where the chain of money, because I mean all these things, we're all entrepreneurs here as much as we are filmmakers. I don't know if you guys think so.
So I want to say know as much as you can, you know, because a friend of mine produced a film called Gin that won South by Southwest last year, and it got picked up. And they knew the market of the film. They knew where it should play. And when it came out, it did horribly bad. And there's people till this day that keep asking, when is the film coming out? Like, they knew their market. So I know it's going to sound maybe a little cocky, but you kind of have to like tell these distributors, like, if they really want your movie, they have to be willing to like work with you. You know what I mean? Like, if you know where it's going to do well, they have to listen to you at the same time, or at least compromise. You know, like if you know your film is going to do well in Philly, like they knew it was going to do well in Philly, but the distributor did not release it there, and people in Philly kept asking for it. So it played eventually, like I think at a festival while this was happening. I don't know exactly how it happened, but it played in Philly, not through the theatrical, and people, you know, went to go see it. Maybe they just did like a screening in like a library or something. I don't know how they saw it, but people wanted to see it. So I think it's important to know your film and the market and distribution. That way you're not pushed around by a distributor, because a lot of times these people that are in the distribution companies, they don't know what the hell they're doing. You know, like a lot of them are failing. A lot of distribution companies have gone out of business or they've merged. Like, you know, I've been going to every festival. I've been to every festival this year, like Sundance, South by, Tribeca. Nothing sold at South by Southwest, which is like crazy. The only films that sold were films that were sold in advance. There were a few buys at Sundance, a few buys at Tribeca, a few buys at Cannes, but generally speaking, they weren't. But I think it gives you leverage when you know what's going on, and you can speak to the distributor and your sales reps in a manner, and they'll respect it and they'll help, because at the end of the day, everybody wants to make their money. You know, they want to get their cut. You know, so I think it's important to know that, or if you don't care to know it, have a partner or someone that you trust, you know, that can cover that for you.
Yeah.
few questions. Casting directors, what about them? What's going on there? And the best ways to find talent. The best ways to find talent, especially if they're A-list, because if they're not A-list, you know, then you can't even ask for a certain amount of money. But then if you're A-listed, they're traveling around the world on vacation, all over the place on a boat or whatever. So then how do you get to them? And the best way, SAG after. What do you think about that? You know, and then where is the money? So, if we can't make any money, yeah. So I want to talk to you. So, I always hear that there's no money. Somebody's making the money, and there's a patchwork of different. You know, there's the film tax credit, there's a loan, there's the equity. You know, I don't care if it's 4 years. There's some money there. So. Tell me the different scenarios of how to get the money, and not that I'm going to walk away with no money at all.
I'm going to answer some of that as best as I can. In terms of the talent, like, I'm going to tell you, this is what I do. I circumvent the agents, you know, yeah, definitely be a stalker. Yeah, let me be a stalker. Like, I have Colby Smulders in one of my films. I don't know if you know who he is. He's like, you know, I can't tell you what we paid her, but we don't have a casting director on this film. We have Colby Smulders, we have Michael Potts. You know, Forrest Whitaker reached out and wanted to be in the film. You know, and it was all again relationships. So I think it's important to go. Like what I've personally done is that I look at the festivals in New York or in regions, and I go to the premieres, and I go to the talent directly. Like, hey, I love your work. I want to work with you. This is what I've done. How can we work together? And I would say 80% of the time, I usually get there direct, and then we start, you know, a conversation like that. I ran into Craig Robinson in the street, said, dude, I want to work with you. Okay, how do we work? Give me your number. Boom. And now we're in dialogue, you know, so that's usually what I do. Most people are like a little timid about doing that, but I think that if you come there with confidence and you know what you're talking about, they'll be responsive and just don't take no for an answer. In terms of casting directors, I think that that's a great, you know, avenue. It's just doing your research on which casting director you want to use. I've been able to, you know, usually give them a retainer. The retainer's about like $5,000. Some are more, you know, that could be like $10,000. But sometimes if the casting director really loves the film, or let's say they come with a director, you know, maybe they'll just take a producer credit and, you know, they don't even care about the fee, you know, so that's not always the case.
You don't want to work with that casting director.
I'm just saying, there's multiple ways to skin a cat, you know, but casting directors are great, and their job is to, you know, like a lot of them have relationships to talent agents and managers, and that's what they're going to do. They're going to field, you know, your offers. And in the rare case, I have just contacted the agent or manager directly, and you know, I've been able to get the talent. That doesn't always work, especially like if you're dealing with CAA specifically. But another way to get to talent is that a lot of them have production companies. So, you know, let's say you want to work with, I'm just going to say Will Smith, for example. You contact his production company, you go through it, and they really respond to the material. I mean, the chances of getting Will Smith are slim, but I'm just giving an example, you know. But that's one way you can circumvent going through the agent. And if you know what they're looking for, you know, like there's certain actors that are looking for a specific type of role, or they'd love to do this, or you overhear it on the podcast. That's what I've done. I listen to like random things and like, wait, this person's looking for this. So I go to them, I say, I know you've been looking to work on that, and guess what? I have the perfect thing. And then you start a dialogue in terms of that. In terms of the money, it's a good question. The truth is that, you know, Netflix is in the red. They're not making any money. I sat down with someone at, what company was this? DirecTV. And he told me like the market is crazy. Everyone is chasing Netflix, but the reality is that they're in debt, you know, and a lot of people are not aware of that. So a lot of people are not making money in this business, so I really don't know where the money's coming from. I Am Global shut down their office, and this was a big conglomerate, you know, Relativity, out of business. So there are some people making money, and I think the people that are making money are the companies like 3 Point Capital. You know, these are companies that lend against the tax credit and they charge a high fee. So some of these companies have figured out ways to you know, but the traditional companies that are investing, Annapurna is ran by basically a billionaire. They're in trouble, you know, so I don't know, but people like movies and people still invest. So that's the bottom line.
Can I ask, what kind of film are you looking to do?
Animation.
Okay. And what do you think the budget is?
$5 million.
Okay. So you're going to want a group of actors who have a name recognition, right? Your budget should allow for some of that, right? Who are going to voice your script, and they have to be SAG-AFTRA at that budget.
Yeah.
SAG-AFTRA is a pain in the ass, but it's a fact of life.
I was there at the headquarters.
Yeah. And they run a course once a month, which I encourage all of you to go. It's free. It's run by a group called SAG Indie, and they teach you about what their contracts mean and how they work. So there's the low budget, there's the ultra low budget. I did an ultra low budget picture with Dennis Hopper in it. Okay, so we managed to get him in there for $100 a day. Gotta give him a big piece of the profits, which of course there weren't any, but that's what we did. So it's possible to do that stuff. And to your point about what you need to know, as a writer, you need to know what you're going to get paid and what your profit is. That's basically all you need to know. It's good to know the rest because you're going to see your film all over the place and wonder why you're not getting any money. So if you know why, it helps you. But to your point, I think that SAG's a pain. Casting directors can be a godsend. I represent a very well-known casting director. She charges $12,500 per element. She will find you a director. She will find you the 2 A-list actors. And she has relationships with everybody.
Is this Bonnie Timmerman?
I'm not telling you.
I know who it is.
And they're
Write this name down, everybody.
So she will, if she likes your property, she'll do it. There are other casting directors who will charge $2,500 to get involved. And they have a certain level of contacts. Deborah Markowitz is a casting director. She can help you find cast. So it really is a function of what you need and what you want and what that casting director can provide. As to where the money is, nobody knows where the money is. If you want to get 100% of your picture financed at Hulu or at Amazon, you got to go to them. But if you want to finance it independently, you're going to get a foreign pre-sale deal, you're going to get a tax credit deal, and you're going to talk to everybody you know to say, who do you know is interested in investing in films? Not to ask them, you're asking them to tell you who else. Because when you ask them about somebody else and they say, well, what's the film about? You're now pitching them. And when you pitch them, they basically, I'll give you $50,000. And all of a sudden, you're finding the money. The money is nowhere to be found except it's right in front of you every time.
And then to add on to that, so if France, right, for animation, their tax credits, depending on what you have, can go up to 80%. And Europe has 40%, and Canada has something, and Japan has Can I get like multiple tax credits involved on one film?
Probably to some degree. Not a lot.
Yeah.
Very difficult.
Well, what's really cool about Europe is not like the United States. They fund movies, So if you're European, there's treaties. So if you can get a Canadian partner, Canada has a treaty with Europe. So like I'm going through this right now. There's this thing called the Euro Image. If you want to look into that, and Euro Creative, you need 2 European countries from the EU. And then you can apply for money, and they'll, like, for example, Midsummer that came out. If you look at the end credits, you see the Euro Image logo. So they funded part of that movie. So, for example, if you shoot in Romania, they have like a 45% tax credit, and like the dollar or the euro compared to that stretches. So certain countries do have really good tax incentives. And if you go to the Euro Creative and Image, you're basically working with 2 countries where you can get the credit, but you can't. It's really hard to do like 10 countries or the whole world unless you're doing like a James Bond movie. It's really complicated, and it's probably not worth doing all that. But to involve maybe 2 countries, it may make sense. But this is the European model. It won't work in the U.S., so it can't really be like a U.S. picture. Maybe it could be a U.S. director or producer or actor, but it'd be following the European model, and it requires you to do some research and due diligence. But I would look into the Euro Image, Euro Creative, and there's this thing called a transatlantic partnership, so you probably should look into getting into that. I think it's like $3,000, and then they bring you into this program, and you meet all these producers internationally, and they all help one another. And then I think you go to Germany for a little bit, then you go to Canada, but that would be your best bet.
I actually got Greek citizenship because I wanted to get in that world. And like honestly, my game jumped from here to here once I had access to that whole world of the Euro financing. And it's always a Canada, EU, CoPro, usually France, usually Germany. Germany has a lot of money. So,
A lot of money.
Yeah.
A lot of money.
So there are ways to make a film and there are ways to make money, but it's not an easy way, and it's not usually a way where us as independent creators can make our own choices. So that's, if you are willing to sacrifice your vision, then I think you're able to make money. But there's always someone in there who will make more money than you.
So basically, it's a point system in Europe. So if you have let's say you're shooting in Sweden, your director is Swedish, your writer is Swedish. You get all these points, and when you get all these points, you apply, and then out of the hundreds of thousands, you may get picked, and they fully finance it, and you don't have to pay the investors back. So what a colleague of mine did, he shot this film for a little under $5 million. He got Spain to give him $4 million, and he raised $500,000 in equity. And it's a great return for his investors. You know, he really litigated the risk. So win-win for everybody because they don't have to pay $4 million back. So even if they get $1 million, they've won. You know.
Yeah. Steve, anything?
I mean, it's everybody's asking that same question. Like, you know, where's the money to be had now? I mean, so many things have changed. Like, you know, piracy has changed the game a lot. You know, if you go back like 15 years, you could finance a film just on the returns you could expect from Blockbuster Video. You know, back then, if somebody rents a movie of yours, you're seeing like $2.50 back per rental. You know, that's a really good rev share. Now, like if you're on Amazon Prime, you're getting like 6 cents. So that's a huge difference between then and now. So you have to take all those things into consideration. So it's a different market. But at the same time, Amazon has access to 80 million people. You know, so it balances, but not quite. You know, but things are still in flux. Things are still changing, and I think eventually things will happen that will turn it around. Like for example, there's a lot of things that they're trying to get passed. Because I think now in Europe, I don't know the exact name of it, but has something to do with being able to go after people who are hosting your pirated content. So that could be a game changer because right now you can write a letter to Google, you know, send a notice saying take this down, but then it just goes right back up again. But if the people who are hosting that can actually be held accountable, then that will change the game completely. And it's been overlooked for a really long time. A lot of people have lost a lot of money because of piracy, but until they get that figured out, it's going to be really hard to, you know, to find the revenue. And everybody's struggling with the same thing. This is why so many of these independent companies are going out of business. This is the reason why you're only seeing, you know, Marvel superheroes at the theater, because things have become like these event movies because nobody's going to see small movies anymore. Nobody's making romantic comedies anymore. You don't see that in the theater because it's really hard to get people to get out of the house and go and watch a movie. So I think we're in a really weird time right now, but I do think it's going to work itself out because there's too much at stake for it not to. But you just have to be careful, you know, when you budget things. Just take all those things into consideration of how the market has changed.
And the other way people make money is by charging for things like this. So, I mean, there's a whole industry built upon people who take advantage of all of our dreams. So, everyone in this room, the festival, us, we are all here to help. So just please be careful. If anyone charges you to try and help you with your dreams, just walk away. And like, you know,
that's my whole
give us a
business.
phone call. And on that note, thank you all for coming.
Listen, I have something to hand out. Remember the description I gave you all about the New York Film Tax Credit? I just wrote an article yesterday, and if you take a copy of my article, I ask you to give me comments on it before I publish it. Okay? Thank you.
Man, we could not have ended that better. Yeah.